In a world filled with constant distractions, fleeting pleasures, and endless pursuits, finding true fulfillment can feel like a distant dream. Yet the Stoics, ancient philosophers known for their profound insights into human nature, believe that a better, more meaningful life is not only possible, but attainable by all. Their teachings, rooted in wisdom and practicality, offer us timeless guidance on how to live with greater purpose, inner peace, and contentment. But how do we move from knowing these principles to truly living them? In this video, we explore 7 essential Stoic principles that can transform your life, from embracing the present moment to finding contentment in simplicity. These principles are not just philosophical ideas, but practical steps you can take to cultivate a more fulfilled and purposeful existence. Are you ready to learn how to navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom and unlock the secrets to a better life? Join us as we delve into the core teachings of Stoicism and discover the path to a truly enriched life. 1. Embrace the present moment. To embrace the present moment is to awaken to life itself. The past is but a memory, the future an illusion. All we truly have is now. Yet how often do we find ourselves trapped between regrets of what was and fears of what might be? The Stoics remind us that to live fully, we must learn to let go of these shadows and focus on the here and now, where true life unfolds. Let me share with you a story from my own life that taught me the value of living in the present. It was during a particularly tumultuous period of my reign. The borders of the empire were under threat, the Senate was divided, and rumors of betrayal echoed through the halls of power. Each day seemed to bring new challenges, new fears. I found myself caught in a whirlwind of what-ifs. What if the enemies breached our defenses? What if the Senate turned against me? What if the people lost faith? One evening, overwhelmed by these thoughts, I sought solace in the gardens of the palace. The air was cool, the stars just beginning to appear in the twilight sky. As I walked among the statues and fountains, I came upon an old gardener, tending to a bed of flowers. He looked up at me and smiled. "Good evening, Emperor," he said, his voice calm and steady. "You seem troubled. Is there something I can help with?" I laughed softly, shaking my head. "I doubt it," I replied. "The troubles of an emperor are not easily solved by a gardener." But he persisted. "What troubles you, my lord?" I hesitated, then found myself speaking, almost against my own will. "It is the weight of what could happen," I confessed. "The fears of what the future might bring." The gardener nodded thoughtfully. "Ah, the future," he mused. "A fickle thing, always just out of reach. But tell me, Emperor, do you enjoy these flowers?" I was taken aback by his question. "Of course," I said. "They are beautiful." "And yet," he continued, "they will wither and die come winter. Does that make them any less beautiful now?" I paused, realizing the truth in his words. "No," I admitted. "Their beauty is in the present." The gardener smiled again. "Exactly. We cannot change the past nor control the future. But we can choose to enjoy the beauty of this moment, to live fully in the now without fear of what is to come." That simple conversation with a humble gardener reminded me of a profound Stoic lesson, that life is lived in moments, not in years or decades. It is easy to be consumed by worries about the future or regrets about the past, but in doing so, we miss the beauty and wonder of the present. I thanked him, and as I continued my walk, I felt a sense of peace I had not known in days. Consider the tale of a Roman merchant who spent his days worrying about his business, about the deals that could go wrong, the ships that could be lost at sea, competitors who might undermine him. Each day was filled with anxiety, his thoughts always on what might happen tomorrow. One day, as he sat by the docks watching the ships come in, an old sailor approached him. "You seem troubled," the sailor said. The merchant sighed. "I am worried about what tomorrow might bring." The sailor chuckled. "Ah, tomorrow. I once lost a ship to a storm, and I spent years fearing the loss of another. But I realized one day, as I watched a beautiful sunset, that I was missing the beauty of the sea, the joy of each day, and living in fear of what might be. Now, I live for the sunset, not the storms." The merchant, inspired by the sailor's wisdom, decided to change his ways. He began to focus on the present, on enjoying his work and his life, rather than worrying about what might come. Found a new peace, a new joy, in the simple moments of each day. Or think of a Roman artist who spent years perfecting her craft, always striving for the perfect piece, always fearing that her best work was behind her or that her future creations would never be good enough. One day she met an old sculptor who, despite his age, still worked with passion and joy. "How do you continue to create with such enthusiasm?" she asked. He smiled and replied, "I do not worry about what I have done or what I will do. I simply enjoy the act of creating in the moment, letting the stone guide my hands. In this way, every piece is a joy, a discovery, present." Inspired by his words, the artist began to focus less on the outcome and more on the process, finding a renewed love for her craft. People often get caught in the past or the future, missing the beauty and wonder of the present. But the Stoics teach us that the present is all we truly have, and it is in this moment that life is fully lived. There's a quiet wisdom in embracing the present moment. I once met a philosopher who was known for his deep thoughts and profound teachings, yet he seemed troubled, always lost in thought, never fully present. I asked him, "What occupies your mind so?" He sighed. "Questions of life, of existence, of what is to come." I nodded and said, "And what of now? What of this moment?" He looked at me, surprised, and then slowly a smile spread across his face. "I suppose," he said softly, "I have been missing it, haven't I?" From that day on, he made a conscious effort to live more in the present, to enjoy the moments of his life, rather than being lost in thoughts of what might be. So, how do you embrace the present moment? Start by letting go of regrets about the past and fears about the future. Focus on what is before you, on the simple joys of life, taste of a good meal, the warmth of the sun on your face, the sound of laughter. These are the moments that make up a life, and they are worth savoring. Remember, as I have often reflected, confine yourself to the present. By living in the present, you free yourself from the burdens of the past and the anxieties of the future. You find peace, joy, and fulfillment in the here and now. And most importantly, by embracing the present moment, you discover the true essence of life, a life lived fully, deeply, and with purpose. This, my friends, is the path of the Stoic. To let go of what was, to not worry about what will be, and to live fully in the now, where life truly happens. 2. Practice gratitude. Daily gratitude, like a gentle rain, nourishes the soul and brings life to what may seem barren. In a world full of desires and endless pursuits, it is easy to forget the simple blessings that surround us every day. We often overlook the small things, the warmth of the sun, the kindness of a stranger, the love of a friend, focusing instead on what we lack, what we wish for, what we believe would make us happier. But the Stoics teach us that true contentment comes not from acquiring more, but from appreciating what we already have. Practice gratitude daily is to awaken to the richness of life. Let me share with you a moment from my own life when the importance of gratitude was made clear to me. It was a time of great unrest within the empire. Provinces were restless, the coffers were low, and there were whispers of rebellion among the ranks. Each day brought new challenges, new demands, new reasons to feel overwhelmed and dissatisfied. I found myself growing weary, my spirit weighed down by the burdens of leadership. One afternoon, as I walked through the palace gardens, lost in thought, I was approached by an elderly servant who had been in my family's service for many years. She had seen emperors come and go, seen the rise and fall of fortunes. She looked at me with wise, gentle eyes and said, "You seem troubled, my lord. May I offer a piece of advice?" I nodded, curious about what she might say. "In times of trouble," she continued, "I have found it helpful to count my blessings, to remember all that is good, even in the midst of hardship." I was taken aback by her words, simple yet profound. I realized that I had been so focused on the problems at hand that I had forgotten to appreciate the many blessings in my life. The loyalty of my soldiers, the wisdom of my counselors, the love of my family, the beauty of a sunset over Rome. That evening I sat down and began to write a list of things I was grateful for. At first the list was short, but as I continued, more and more blessings came to mind. I felt a lightness return to my heart, a sense of peace I had not known in weeks. Gratitude, I discovered, is a powerful antidote to despair. It shifts our focus from what is lacking to what is present, from what is wrong to what is right. It reminds us that, even in the darkest of times, there is always something to be thankful for. That simple practice of daily gratitude became a source of strength and resilience for me, a way to ground myself, amidst the turmoil. Consider the tale of a Roman farmer who, after a season of drought, lost much of his harvest. He stood in his barren fields, feeling a profound sense of loss and frustration. His neighbor, seeing his despair, approached him and said, "I see your fields are empty, but look around you. Your family is healthy, your home is secure, and the sun still rises to greet you each day. There is still much to be grateful for." The farmer, inspired by these words, began to focus on what he still had, rather than what he had lost. He found new hope in the support of his community, in the love of his family, in the simple joys of life. With time, his fields flourished once more, nourished not just by rain, but by a heart full of gratitude. Or think of a Roman soldier, weary from years of battle, longing for peace. He felt the weight of his armor, the scars of his wounds, and wondered if it was all worth it. One night, as he sat by the campfire, a fellow soldier shared his own perspective. "I too have seen much suffering," he said, "but I am grateful for every breath I take, for the comrades who stand by me, for the stars above that remind me of the vastness of the universe. Gratitude keeps me going, gives me strength to face another day." The weary soldier, moved by these words, began to practice gratitude himself, finding solace in the little things, a shared meal, a warm fire, the beauty of a quiet night. People often get lost in their worries, their desires, their fears, forgetting the simple blessings that surround them. But the Stoics teach us that gratitude is not just a feeling but a practice, a daily discipline of acknowledging the good in our lives, however small it may seem. There's a certain humility in practicing gratitude daily. I once met a scholar who was renowned for his intellect, but often seemed troubled, dissatisfied with his lot. I asked him, "Why do you seem so restless, so unhappy?" He sighed and replied, "I am always striving for more, always seeking what I do not have." I nodded and suggested, "Why not start by appreciating what you do have?" He took my advice and began to keep a journal of gratitude. Over time, he found himself more content, more at peace, no longer driven by a restless desire for more, but by a deep appreciation for what already was. So, how do you practice gratitude daily? Start by taking a few moments each day to reflect on what you are thankful for. Write it down, say it out loud, or simply hold it in your heart. Could be as simple as a smile from a stranger, a good meal, a moment of peace. The more you practice gratitude, the more you will find to be grateful for. Remember, as I have often written, do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours. By practicing gratitude daily, you cultivate a spirit of contentment, peace, of joy, and most importantly, by embracing gratitude, you open your heart to the abundance of life, to the simple joys that are always within reach. This, my friends, is the path of the Stoic, to live with a thankful heart, to find joy in what is rather than in what is not, and to cherish each moment as a gift. Cultivate inner strength. Strength is often seen in the might of the body, power to overcome obstacles, to conquer foes. But there is another kind of strength, one that is quieter, deeper, and far more resilient. Strength of the mind, fortitude of the spirit. This inner strength is not about dominating others or proving one's might. It is about remaining steadfast in the face of adversity, finding calm amidst chaos, and maintaining one's principles when the world around you is in turmoil. The Stoics teach us that cultivating inner strength is essential for navigating life's challenges with grace and purpose. Let me take you back to a time during my reign when Rome was faced with an unexpected crisis. Plague had swept through the empire, decimating the population and striking fear into the hearts of the people. The air was thick with despair, and each day seemed to bring more bad news. It was a time of great uncertainty. Even the bravest among us felt the weight of fear. I too felt the pressure, an invisible hand pressing down, urging me to act out of desperation, to make decisions driven by panic. One evening, as I walked through the dimly lit halls of the palace, I felt the tension gnawing at my soul. I sought refuge in the quiet solitude of my study, lighting a single candle against the darkness. As the flame flickered, I found myself recalling the words of an old Stoic teaching. The greatest battles are fought not on the fields of war, but within the mind. I realized then that my struggle was not with the plague, but with my own fear and anxiety. To lead Rome through this crisis, I needed to cultivate not just courage, but an unshakable inner strength. The following day, I called a meeting with my closest advisors and generals. "We are facing a great challenge," I began, "but it is not the plague itself that will defeat us. It is the fear it inspires. We must remain strong, not just in our actions, but in our hearts and minds. We must show our people that even in the darkest of times, we can find light." My words were met with nods of agreement, and slowly, a sense of resolve began to replace the fear. It was not an easy path, but by focusing on building our inner strength, we found the courage to face the crisis head-on. Consider the story of a Roman gladiator who, despite his imposing physique and mastery in combat, found himself trembling before a great fight. He had faced many opponents before, but something about this match had unsettled him. An older, more seasoned gladiator noticed his unease and approached him. "Strength is not about having no fear," he said, "but about feeling the fear and fighting anyway. Remember, greatest battles are not fought with the sword, but with the spirit. Fortify your mind, and your body will follow." The younger gladiator, inspired by these words, spent the night not in fear, but in quiet contemplation, focusing on his breath, calming his mind. The next day, he entered the arena not with a reckless bravado, but with a calm determination. He fought well, and though he was wounded, he emerged victorious, not because of his physical strength, but because of the inner strength he had cultivated. Or think of a Roman healer, overwhelmed by the constant demands of caring for the sick and wounded. She found herself on the brink of exhaustion, her hands trembling, her spirit weary. One day, an old patient who had witnessed her tireless work took her hand and said, "Your strength is not in the number of lives you save, but in the compassion you show, the calm you bring to those in pain. Find your center, and you will find your strength." The healer, touched by these words, began to take a few moments each day to meditate, to breathe deeply, to reconnect with her inner self. She discovered that by nurturing her own spirit, she was better able to care for others, bring a sense of calm and strength to those around her. People often equate strength with outward displays of power or control. But the Stoics teach us that true strength comes from within, from a place of inner calm, from a resilience that does not waver with the storms of life. It is the strength to remain true to one's principles, stay steady amidst the turmoil, to find peace even in the midst of chaos. There is a deep wisdom in cultivating inner strength. I once met a senator who was known for his fiery speeches and his bold declaration. Yet behind closed doors, he was plagued by doubt and insecurity. He sought my counsel, saying, "How can I project strength when I feel so weak inside?" I told him, "Strength is not about shouting the loudest. It is about knowing when to be silent, to listen, to reflect. Build your strength from within, and you will find that the world will listen." He took my words to heart and began a daily practice of reflection and meditation. Over time, he found a new sense of confidence, not born of bravado, but of a deep inner strength. So, how do you cultivate inner strength in your own life? Start by quieting the mind, by finding moments of stillness amidst the noise. Reflect on your values, your principles, your purpose. Build a foundation of calm and clarity so that when challenges arise, you are not easily shaken. Remember, as I have often written, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. By cultivating inner strength, you prepare yourself to face whatever life may bring with grace, resilience, and calm. And most importantly, by focusing on your inner strength, you discover a well of courage and determination that can never be taken from you. This, my friends, is the path of the Stoic: to build a fortress of the mind, to stand firm in the face of adversity, and to find strength not in the world outside, but in the spirit within. Or, seek wisdom, not wealth. In a world obsessed with wealth, power, and material success, it is easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We are often taught to chase after riches, to measure our worth by the weight of our gold or the size of our estates. Yet, the Stoics remind us that true fulfillment does not come from wealth but from wisdom, from the pursuit of knowledge, understanding, and a deeper connection with the self and the universe. To seek wisdom over wealth is to choose a path that enriches the soul, not just the pocket. I remember a time early in my reign when I was approached by a group of wealthy merchants. They had come to offer me a lucrative proposition, an investment that promised great returns for both myself and the empire. They spoke of gold, land, of power. "Emperor," one of them said with a smile, "with your influence and our resources, we could become the wealthiest rulers in the known world." The room buzzed with excitement, the allure of easy riches captivating those around me. But as I listened, I felt a growing unease. I recalled the teachings of my mentors, who had always emphasized the importance of wisdom over wealth, character over comfort. I looked at the merchants and asked, "And what of wisdom? What of virtue? Will these riches bring us closer to truth, to understanding, to a life well lived?" My words were met with puzzled expressions. One of the merchants, clearly frustrated, replied, "Wisdom does not fill our coffers, Emperor. Gold does." I smiled gently and said, "Perhaps not, but wisdom fills the soul, and a soul filled with wisdom is richer than any treasure chest." The merchants left, disappointed, but I felt a sense of peace. I had chosen a different path not of material gain, but of intellectual and spiritual growth. I began to spend more time with philosophers and scholars, engaging in deep discussions about life, purpose, and the nature of existence. I found that the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. Knowledge, I discovered, was an endless journey, a path that brought not just answers, but more profound questions. Consider the story of a young Roman senator, ambitious and eager to climb the political ladder. He believed that wealth was the key to power, and power the key to happiness. He spent his days amassing fortunes, striking deals, and expanding his estates. But as his wealth grew, so did his emptiness. He found himself surrounded by luxury, yet plagued by a sense of dissatisfaction, feeling that something was missing. One day, he met an old philosopher who lived a simple life, few possessions, but a wealth of knowledge. Intrigued, the senator asked, "How can you be content with so little?" Philosopher replied, "I may have little in gold, but I am rich in wisdom. I understand the nature of my desires, the workings of my mind, the mysteries of the universe. Can your wealth give you that?" The senator, struck by these words, began to question his own values. Over time, he turned away from his pursuit of riches and began to seek knowledge instead. He discovered a deeper sense of fulfillment, a richness that gold could never provide. Or think of a Roman artist who was celebrated for her beautiful sculptures. Her work was in high demand, and she was offered great sums of money for each piece. She found herself increasingly dissatisfied, passion for her craft waning under the weight of commercial success. One day, she met a fellow artist, a humble painter who lived in a small studio, content with his simple life. She asked him, "Why do you not sell your work for more? Why do you not seek wealth?" He smiled and replied, "I create not for gold, but for the love of creation, for the joy of expressing the beauty I see in the world. That is my wealth." Inspired by his words, she decided to focus less on money and more on her true passion, rediscovering the joy and fulfillment that had first drawn her to art. People often chase after wealth, believing it will bring them happiness, security, or status. But the Stoics teach us that wealth is fleeting, that it can be lost or taken away. True wealth lies in wisdom, in the knowledge that enriches the mind, the understanding that enlightens the spirit, insights that bring us closer to our true self. There is a deep peace in seeking wisdom over wealth. I once met a young scholar who was torn between accepting a lucrative position in a wealthy patron's court or continuing his studies in philosophy. He asked me, "What should I do, Emperor? Should I choose the path of wealth or the path of wisdom?" I replied, "Wealth may bring comfort, but it cannot buy understanding. Wisdom, on the other hand, is a treasure that grows with time, light that never fades. Choose the path that brings true fulfillment, not just temporary gain." He chose to continue his studies, and though he lived a modest life, he found a richness in his learning, a joy in his discoveries that no amount of gold could match. So, how do you seek wisdom over wealth in your own life? Start by valuing knowledge, by being curious about the world around you, by seeking to understand yourself and others. Spend time with those who challenge you to think, who inspire you to grow. Read widely, reflect deeply, and learn continuously. Remember, as I have often pondered, If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now. By seeking wisdom, you cultivate a mind that is free, a spirit that is enlightened, a life that is rich in meaning. And most importantly, by choosing wisdom over wealth, you embark on a journey of self-discovery, of growth, fulfillment. This, my friends, is the path of the Stoic. To seek not the fleeting treasures of the world, the lasting riches, the soul. 5. Live by your values. In a world full of temptations and pressures, it can be challenging to stay true to one's values. We are constantly bombarded by influences that encourage us to stray from our path, compromise our principles for the sake of convenience, success, or acceptance. Yet, the Stoics teach us that living by our values is the key to true fulfillment and inner peace. Our values are our compass, guiding us through the uncertainties of life, reminding us of what truly matters. Let me share with you a moment from my own life when the importance of living by my values became starkly clear. It was a time of great political intrigue in Rome. Factions within the Senate were vying for power, each trying to outmaneuver the other. The air was thick with rumors, and loyalty was a currency traded with great caution. I was approached by a group of senators who had a proposal, an alliance that would guarantee my position and secure the support of their faction. "Emperor," one of them said, "join us, and together we will ensure that Rome remains strong under your rule." The offer was tempting, promised stability, power, and the support of some of the most influential men in Rome. But there was a catch. In return for their support, they wanted certain favors, decisions that would benefit them, but compromise my values of fairness and justice. I stood there, listening to their proposal, feeling a sense of unease grow within me. I realized that accepting their offer would mean betraying my own principle, my commitment to the greater good of Rome. I took a deep breath and replied, "I appreciate your offer, but I must decline. My loyalty is to Rome, to her people, and to the principles of justice and fairness. I cannot, in good conscience, agree to anything that compromises these values." The senators looked at me, stunned by my refusal. One of them scoffed, "You are a fool, Emperor. You are throwing away a golden opportunity." I smiled and said, "Perhaps, but I would rather be a fool with my integrity intact than a ruler who has lost his way." That decision was not without consequence. I faced resistance, political isolation, and numerous challenges, but I also felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that I had stayed true to my values. Over time, the respect I gained from others, not for my power, but for my principles, grew. I learned that living by your values is not always easy, but it is always right. It is what gives life meaning, what defines our character. Consider the story of a Roman trader who was known for his honesty and fair dealings. One day, he was approached by a wealthy client who offered him a fortune to deceive a competitor. "It is just a business," the client insisted. "Everyone does it." For a moment, the trader was tempted. The money would secure his future, provide for his family. But then he thought of his reputation, built on years of trust and integrity. He turned to the client and said, "My wealth is measured not in coins, but in the trust of those I serve. I will not betray that trust, not for any amount of money." The client, taken aback, left, but the trader's reputation for honesty only grew stronger. Or think of a Roman physician, renowned for her skills but faced with a difficult choice. Powerful noble offered her a great sum of money to prioritize his family over other patients. The money would allow her to expand her practice, buy new equipment, to train more staff. But it would also mean compromising her values of fairness and equal treatment for all. She took a moment to reflect, then declined the offer, saying, "My duty is to heal, not to serve wealth. I cannot put a price on my values." Her refusal earned her the respect and admiration of her peers and patients alike, and she continued her work with a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. People often compromise their values for the sake of convenience, success, or acceptance. They believe that by bending their principles, they can achieve greater gains. But the Stoics teach us that true fulfillment comes not from external rewards, from staying true to oneself. There is a quiet strength in living by your values. I once met a young poet who was eager to gain fame and recognition. He was approached by a wealthy patron who offered to sponsor his work, but only if he would write verses that praised the patron's deeds, regardless of the truth. The poet, torn between his desire for success and his commitment to his art, sought my advice. I told him, success built on a lie is no success at all. Stay true to your words, to your craft, to your values. In the end, it is not fame that matters, but integrity. He heeded my advice, and though his rise to fame was slower, it was built on a foundation of honesty and authenticity. So how do you live by your values in your own life? Start by knowing what your values are, what you stand for, what you believe in. Reflect on them often, especially when faced with difficult choices. Do not be swayed by the opinions of others or the temptations of the moment. Stay true to your principles, and you will find a sense of peace and fulfillment that no external success can match. Remember, as I have often reflected, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. By living by your values, you define your character, you shape your destiny, you create a life that is meaningful and true. And most importantly, by choosing to live by your values, you affirm your commitment to yourself, to your principles, to what is right. This, my friends, is the path of the Stoic: to live with integrity, to act with honor, and to stay true to oneself, no matter what the world may bring. 6. Accept what you cannot change. There is a peace that comes from accepting what we cannot change. In life, we often struggle against forces beyond our control, railing against the inevitable, hoping to bend reality to our will. We fight against time, against loss, against the very nature of existence itself. But the Stoics remind us that true wisdom lies not in changing the world around us, but in accepting it as it is, and finding our strength within that acceptance. Let me share with you a story from my own reign, a lesson in learning to accept what cannot be changed. It was a time of great loss for me personally, the passing of my beloved wife Faustina. Her death came suddenly, like a thief in the night, stealing away a part of my soul. I was consumed by grief, by a sense of emptiness that no words could fill. I found myself wishing desperately for a different outcome, for the impossible to somehow be possible again. I could not accept that she was gone. One evening, as I wandered the quiet halls of the palace, lost in my sorrow, I came upon an old statue of a philosopher, his face calm and serene, his eyes gazing into the distance. Beneath the statue were the words, "What we desire can never change what is. What is will always be as it must." I felt a jolt of recognition, a reminder that there are forces in life beyond even the power of an emperor. I realized that my suffering was not just from my loss, from my refusal to accept it. I was clinging to a reality that no longer existed, refusing to let go of what was, and in doing so, I was prolonging my own pain. That night, I sat alone in my chambers and spoke aloud to the emptiness. I cannot change what has happened. I cannot bring her back, but I can choose how I carry this loss. I can choose to remember the love, the joy, the moments we shared, rather than the pain of her absence. As I spoke these words, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a sense of calm washing over me. It was not an easy acceptance, nor a quick one, but it was a beginning, a step towards peace. Consider the tale of a Roman general, renowned for his victories in battle, who was suddenly faced with an insurmountable defeat. His army, decimated by a surprise attack, was forced to retreat. The general, known for his unyielding spirit, was devastated. He spent days trying to find a way to reverse his fortune, reclaim the glory he felt slipping away. His closest advisor, a veteran of many wars, finally spoke up. "My lord, there is no shame in defeat when it is beyond your control. Accept it, learn from it, and move on. Dwelling on what cannot be changed will only lead to more suffering." The general, realizing the wisdom in these words, chose to accept his defeat, not as a failure, but as a lesson. He regrouped his forces, learned from his mistakes, and went on to achieve new victory, no longer burdened by the need to change the past. Or think of a Roman widow, whose husband was lost at sea during a great storm. She waited at the shore for days, her eyes scanning the horizon, hoping against hope that he would return. Her neighbors, seeing her suffering, tried to comfort her, but she could not be consoled. One day, a wise old sailor approached her and said, "The sea is vast, and its ways are not ours to understand. We cannot change what the sea takes, only how we live with what it leaves behind." The widow, hearing these words, realized that she could not control the sea, nor the fate it had dealt her. She chose to honor her husband's memory by living fully, by caring for their children, by finding joy in the life they had built together. She accepted what she could not change, and in that acceptance, she found a new strength. People often resist acceptance because they believe it means giving up or resigning to fate. They believe that to accept what cannot be changed is to be weak, to surrender. But the Stoics teach us that acceptance is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. It is the understanding that there are forces in life beyond our control, and that fighting against these forces only leads to more suffering. There is a profound freedom in accepting what we cannot change. I once met a farmer who had lost his crops to a sudden frost. He was filled with anger and frustration, cursing the gods for his misfortune. I asked him, "Why do you curse the frost? It does not hear you. It does not change. Your anger is like shouting at the wind." He looked at me, his eyes filled with tears, and said, "What am I to do then?" I replied, "Accept it, learn from it, prepare for the next season. Use your energy not in fighting what is, but in building what can be." The farmer took my advice, and though he could not change the frost, he found a new resilience, a new determination to face whatever came next. So, how do you accept what you cannot change in your own life? Start by recognizing what is within your control and what is not. Let go of the need to control every outcome, every event. Focus on your response, on your attitude, on your actions. Find peace in the understanding that some things are simply beyond your power. Remember, as I have often written, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. By accepting what you cannot change, you free yourself from the burdens of resistance, from the pain of fighting against reality. You find a new strength in the calm acceptance of what is. And most importantly, by accepting what you cannot change, you open yourself to a life of peace, of clarity, of true freedom. This, my friends, is the path of the Stoic, to embrace the world as it is, to find strength in acceptance, and to live fully within the bounds of what we can and cannot change. 7. Find contentment in simplicity. In a society driven by excess and constant desire for more, it is easy to believe that happiness lies in accumulation. More wealth, more possessions, more status. True contentment, the Stoics teach us, is not found in the abundance of material goods, but in the richness of a simple life. To find joy in simplicity is to understand that less can often be more, that a life free from the chains of excess is a life of freedom and peace. There was a time in my life during the height of my reign when I was surrounded by luxury, finest foods, the grandest banquets, the most opulent surroundings. These were all at my disposal. Yet, despite all this, I often felt a sense of emptiness, lack of true satisfaction. I found myself questioning whether these external pleasures were truly the key to a fulfilled life. One day, I decided to take a different approach. I left the grand halls of the palace and journeyed to a small countryside villa. There, away from the noise and distractions of the city, I lived simply. I ate only the plainest of meals: bread, olives, a bit of cheese. I slept on a hard cot rather than a plush bed. At first, the simplicity was jarring, even uncomfortable. But soon I began to notice something, a sense of peace settling in, clarity of mind that I had not experienced amidst the luxuries of the palace. I found joy in the small things, the warmth of the sun on my face, the sound of birds singing, taste of fresh bread. I realized then that simplicity, rather than luxury, was the true path to contentment. One evening, as I sat outside watching the sunset, I reflected on a passage from Epictetus. Wealth consists not in having great possession, but in having few wants. It struck me how much of my life had been spent in the pursuit of things I thought I needed, rather than appreciating what I already had. The simpler my surroundings became, the more I appreciated the abundance of life itself. Beauty of nature, the joy of a quiet moment, the richness of simply being. Consider the story of a Roman craftsman who, after years of hard work, had amassed enough wealth to buy a grand home, filled it with the finest furniture, the most expensive decorations, believing these things would bring him happiness. But as the months passed, he found himself more burdened than joyful. Upkeep of the house, constant desire to acquire more and better things, it was all exhausting. One day, he met a traveling philosopher who lived with little but seemed immensely content. Intrigued, the craftsman asked, "How can you be so happy with so little?" The philosopher replied, "I am rich because I want for nothing. My wealth is not in what I possess, but in what I do not need." Inspired by these words, the craftsman decided to simplify his life. He sold his grand home, gave away his excess possessions, and moved to a modest cottage. There, he found a new kind of happiness, a deep, lasting contentment in the simplicity of his surroundings. Or think of a Roman soldier who, after years on the battlefield, returned home to find himself restless and uneasy in the comforts of his family estate. He found no joy in the banquets or the fine clothes, no peace in the luxury he had once longed for. One day he met an old friend, a fellow soldier who had chosen to live a simple life as a farmer. He watched as his friend worked the fields, his face calm, his heart at peace. "How do you find joy in such a simple life?" His friend replied, "I have learned that contentment is not about having much, but about wanting little. The fields give me all I need: purpose, connection to the earth, a sense of peace." The soldier, moved by his friend's wisdom, decided to let go of his desire for more and embrace the simplicity of rural life. He found a new contentment, a sense of belonging he had never known in the grand halls of his estate. People often believe that happiness is found in more wealth, more possessions, more status. But the Stoics teach us that true contentment comes from appreciating what we have, from finding joy in the simple things, from living a life free from the endless pursuit of more. There is a profound wisdom in finding contentment in simplicity. I once met a young merchant who was consumed by his desire for wealth. He traveled far and wide, trading in exotic goods, always seeking the next big deal, the next fortune. Yet, despite his success, he found little peace, always feeling a sense of lack, of wanting more. He came to me for advice, and I told him, "The more you have, the more you will want. True wealth is found not in the abundance of your possessions, but in the contentment of your heart." He took my words to heart and decided to simplify his life, focus on what truly mattered. Over time, he found a new joy in his work, not in the profits it brought, but in the connections he made, places he visited, the lessons he learned. So, how do you find contentment in simplicity in your own life? Start by letting go of the need for more. Look around and see the abundance that already exists. Find joy in the simple things: a warm cup of tea, a walk in nature, a quiet moment of reflection. Embrace a life that is rich not in things, but in experiences, in connections, in moments. Remember, as I have often contemplated, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. By finding contentment in simplicity, you free yourself from the endless chase for more and discover a deeper, more lasting happiness. And most importantly, by embracing simplicity, you learn to appreciate the true richness of life, not in what you acquire, but in what you experience, in the quiet moments, in the simple joys. This, my friends, is the path of the Stoic, to find peace not in excess, but in enough, to live fully in the present, and to discover that a simple life is indeed a rich life. In our relentless pursuit of success and happiness, we often find ourselves caught in a cycle of endless striving for more wealth, more recognition, more possession. Yet despite all our efforts, true fulfillment seems ever elusive, just out of reach. What if the secret to a truly fulfilled life lies not in acquiring more, but in embracing less? The Stoics, ancient sages of wisdom, offer us a different path that leads to a richer, more meaningful life through simplicity, inner strength, and alignment with our core values. In this video, we will explore 7 essential Stoic principles that can guide you toward a life of greater peace, purpose, and contentment. From the power of living in the present moment to the profound freedom found in accepting what you cannot change, each principle offers a key to unlocking a deeper, more fulfilling existence. Are you ready to discover how to break free from the chains of excess and find true joy in the simplicity of life? Join us as we delve into the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and learn how to navigate life's complexities with grace and wisdom.